In this video, I'll show you exactly how I create an entity relationship diagram in my favourite tool, LucidChart. I've created a lot of videos on this channel about designing databases, and I often get asked what tool I'm using. So if you want to create an ERD for your database, keep watching. Here is the LucidChart website. LucidChart is a web-based diagramming tool. You can use it for many things, and I mainly use it for entity relationship diagrams. You can use the link in the description to access the LucidChart website. To start, click on the Sign Up Free button. You'll see the pricing page. There's a free plan available and several paid plans. The free plan has limitations but will let you create a diagram. Also, the page has determined that I'm in Australia, so prices are shown in Australian dollars. I assume it will show your currency when you load the page. For this example, we'll use the free plan, so click on Start Free in the Free column. On this pop-up, enter your name, email and a password. Click Create Account. Once you have an account created, you can log in on the LucidChart website by entering this email address and password. You are now logged into LucidChart. Your screen will look something like this. There's a sidebar with access to some recent documents, starred documents and more. You can create new documents using the buttons at the top of the screen. You'll also see a list of documents at the bottom of the screen. Your list will be empty when you start, but I've got a lot of documents here for different ERDs I've created. Let's create a new ERD. To do this, click New, then LucidChart, then Create from Template. You could also create it from a blank document, but I find it easier to start with a template. You'll see the Templates page. To create an ERD, we need to find the ERD template. The popular templates are shown by default, and you can click on this Database ER Diagram Crow's Foot here. If it's not here, you can use the search box and type for ERD to find one. Hover over this Database ER diagram here and click Open. A new tab is opened in your browser and it looks like this. This is a new document based on the template. It comes populated with a few shapes which are like an example of an ERD. There's a box with an explanation and some links. This gives you an idea of what the ERD could look like. For now, we'll start from scratch. Select all of the shapes by clicking on the drawing area and pressing Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows. Then press Delete. We now have a blank page for our diagram. I'll give you a brief tour of the screen, then we can start creating our diagram. On the top left is the title of the document. It currently says Database ER Diagram Crow's Foot, which was the name of the template. We can click on this and edit the title. I'll rename this to our new ERD and press Enter to save it. A spinning icon appears here, which means the changes are being saved. It then changes to a cloud icon with a tick, indicating it is saved. All changes in the document are saved automatically, which is nice. There's a menu bar under the title which has access to many features. We'll cover some of them in this video. There's a toolbar with icons as well, which we'll use during this video. On the left we have the Shapes panel. This is where we can add some shapes to our diagram. There are a few categories of shapes here. We have some standard shapes, then entity relationship diagram shapes, and some saved shapes. The main reason we created this diagram from the ERD template is that these ERD shapes are shown automatically. Finally, in the main part of the screen we have the drawing area where our diagram goes. Let's create a diagram. We'll start by adding a table to our diagram. In the ERD Shapes section we have 4 different shapes, and they look pretty similar. We can hover over them and a preview is shown. The first shape is a table, which has the table name and space for some attributes or column names. The second shape has a second column where you can put indicators for keys, such as primary key and foreign key. The third shape has 1 column for the attribute and 1 for the data type. The fourth shape has 3 columns, the key, the attribute and the data type. It's up to you what shape you want to add and how much detail you want to capture. In my diagrams, I prefer to use the second shape, which has the key and the attribute. Let's add a table. To add a table, drag the shape from the panel onto the drawing area. The table will be added. It's also selected, which you can tell by the little square handles around the shape. If the text is a bit small, you can zoom in by using the zoom buttons on the bottom right. If a shape is selected, we can see the Properties panel on the right. For this table, we have a range of things we can do. We can change the order of the shape by moving it to the back or front, but I don't ever use this for ERDs. In this Change Shape section, you can actually change the shape you have created to any of the four. This is handy if you decide later that you want to use a different format for your table. Next, we have some advanced options where you can add or remove rows. We'll come back to this shortly as I use this section a lot. Let's add some information to our table on our diagram. First, we'll add the name of the table, which is this entity word at the top. Double-click on it and type in a new name. I'll call this table Product. We can start adding fields. If the title is still selected, press Tab to go to the first key value. If not, you can double-click on the first key value. We'll add a primary key called Product ID first, so I'll enter a value of PK for the key, then Product ID for the attribute name. You can enter any value you like for these, so you can use a different format for the keys. Or you can enter a more readable name for the attribute rather than the database column name if you prefer. Press Tab again and you will go to the next row. Keep adding columns to the table that you need. If the name of your column is wider than the shape, you can resize the shape by clicking on the shape and then dragging one of the squares on the corner out to the side. You can also resize individual columns by dragging this grey box on top of the column divider. What if we want to add more columns? There are a couple of ways. On the Properties panel on the right, you can increase the fields value by entering a new number or clicking the up arrow. Or you can click either the above or below buttons to add a new attribute above or below the currently selected attribute on the shape. The new attribute is added. You can then update the key and attribute names for the new attribute. If you want to remove an attribute, you can click on the attribute to select it, which will surround it in a blue box. Then click the Delete button on the Properties panel and the attribute will be deleted. One way to improve the formatting of the table is to add shading to the table header. This makes the heading stand out and looks better in my opinion. To do this, click on the table to select it, then click the icon next to Shaded Header in the Properties panel. The background of the table heading will change to grey. You can even change the colour of this shading by clicking on the circle next to this icon and choosing a new colour. This can be helpful to show different schemas or domains in different colours, or to show current and proposed in different colours. You can also set the table heading to bold to make it stand out even more, which is something I do occasionally. To do this, double-click on the table heading, which is Product here. Then press the keyboard shortcut for bold, which is Command B on Mac or Control B on Windows, or click the bold button in the toolbar. The heading is now bolded. Let's add a second table. I can do this by dragging another table from the Shapes panel onto the drawing area. I'll call this one Supplier, which will store information about suppliers for products. I'll give it the name of Supplier and also shade the header. I want to keep the tables consistent, so I'll remove the bold from the product table and change the shading to grey as well. If you can't see the colour in the pop-up, you can click plus and then enter a hex code for the colour. For the supplier table, I'll add a supplier ID and a supplier name. I'll delete the third column as I don't need it. If you want to move the tables, you can click and drag. You can snap them into position so they're aligned, or move them elsewhere. We have these two tables and they need to be related to each other. A product has a supplier, so we'll add a supplier ID column to the product table. This will be a foreign key, so we'll add the letters FK to the keys column. We can relate these two tables by dragging a line from the primary key to the foreign key. To do that, hover over the supplier ID in the supplier table and you'll see a circle appear to the side of each column. Click on this circle to drag to the supplier ID column in the product table. This will create a one-to-many relationship between the two tables. You can change the icons on the arrows if you like by using these drop-downs on the toolbar here. If you've drawn the line in the wrong direction, you can click this icon here to swap the direction. Or if you've connected the line to the wrong column, you can click on the line and then drag the box to another column. The foreign key is at the bottom of the list of columns here. If you want to move it to sit under the primary key, you can click on the column and drag it up to a new position. You can change the order of any column to suit your preferences. Now that the tables are connected by this line, you can drag the tables around and the line stays connected. There are several other features I use regularly in LucidChart. If you click on the zoom percentage on the bottom right, you can enter a new number. You can also select Zoom to Content, which will zoom to an appropriate amount to fit all of the tables within the window. This is handy to get an overview of your design. If you want to go back to the previous zoom, click the zoom again and select Reset Zoom. LucidChart has some helpful built-in collaboration features. I haven't actually used these as I do all of my design work by myself. One feature I do use a lot is exporting the diagram to a PNG file. I do this for my database design guides and blog posts. To do this, go to File, then Export. You can choose from a range of formats, but I usually pick PNG. This export window appears. You can change the file format here if you like. The next option is Crop. I like to set this to Crop to Content so it removes most of the white space around my diagram. You can change the quality if you like as well. I usually set this to print quality so I can get the best quality, but you can leave it at screen quality if you prefer. Click the download button and the design is saved as a PNG file. At the bottom left of the LucidChart window is a little tab here labelled Page 1. You can create several tabs or pages within a single document, like spreadsheets in an Excel file. To do this, click the plus button and a new page is opened. I often use this for different variations or options for a design. You can also rename the tabs by double-clicking on the name and entering a new name to make it clearer what you are working on. There are a lot of other features inside LucidChart that I don't use that often but can be very helpful for you, such as revision history, publishing diagrams, converting to template, comments, conditional formatting, and metadata. If you're interested in using LucidChart, check out the link in the description to try LucidChart for yourself and your entity relationship diagrams. If you want to see a real example of me designing a database using this tool, you'll want to watch this video next where I design an e-commerce database. Thanks for watching.